I love all of the apostles, and but they don't always agree on everything, and that's okay. We're not mind-numbed robots. Uh, we all have our opinions, and but when something becomes doctrine, it's when the all 15 prophets come to agreement, and then it becomes doctrine. So I have a funny story about one of those disagreements. So many years ago, Elder John Woodrow, I love him. He was a scientist, and so I kind of identify with him. But a book came out with his name on it called The Word of Wisdom. And in that book, it says that Latter day Saints shouldn't eat white bread, shouldn't eat refined sugar, and shouldn't eat chocolate. And my grandparents, I love them. God bless them. They got a hold of this book and they wanted to live by every word that proceeds forth from the mouth of God. That's what we did in our family when we were rebellious teenagers. Instead of going behind the barn and smoking, we'd go behind the barn and eat chocolate and white bread.
Hey,
And
Danny.
that satisfied.
Danny, I got a good loaf of rainbow right here. Half a loaf, $5. Half a loaf.
People don't really know where the world is gonna go. But now everybody knows that you can't stop it too long. Got to keep on. Don't really know where the world.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
European milk chocolate
Yes.
is still dark.
Oh, yeah.
What they call milk chocolate is not as milky as our chocolate.
Yeah. Less sugar. It's good. Good stuff.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to reintroduce you and read your bio again. I know it's redundant, but...
That's all right.
And I want you to know something too, Anthony.
Yeah.
I feel the spirit when I talk to you.
Thank you. I feel the spirit with you.
Anthony Bentley. I like that name. It's catchy. It's crazy awesome.
Thank you.
Anthony
I like it.
Bentley. A Bentley is a car too, isn't it?
Yes, I wish. I have a little one. I
You
have a
do?
little-
Okay, good. Let me
But
introduce
that's
you.
as far as I can get.
Let me introduce you, and you have a joke about white shirts because you were teasing me, and I want you to tell us that joke. Anthony or Tony? Do you go by Tony?
Yes.
And
I have a
Debbie
joke about
Bentley.
that.
Debbie is your wife, and you are the parents of 9 wonderful children. Wow. Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And you took it very serious, Anthony. You are keeping that commandment. I'll tell you that. Many will come after you. Your posterity will be wonderful.
Thank you.
And you have 10 grandchildren already. You look very young, but you're not in your 50s or 40s, are you?
I just turned 60 last November.
Okay. Now, all your children are active members of the church. And so far, 5 of your children have served full-time missions, including one son who's serving in Ogden. And
Well, he'd be
another,
number 6. He would be the 6th missionary. But
he'll
he
be the
hasn't finished,
6th.
So I
but-
didn't count.
Did you count the one that's serving on the other side of the veil?
No.
Okay. Well,
So that would be 7.
7. You have 7 children serving missions. Now he was disabled. What was his? Did he have something terminal?
Yes, he had a mutation, and he was completely disabled. He couldn't even sit up. He couldn't do anything on his own. So he was 100% disabled, and he suffered for many years. He had a curved spine. It kept curving more and more and crushing his heart and lungs.
Oh, okay.
He passed away.
Okay.
So it was a big relief when he finally passed on.
I bet you he loved his heavenly Father. I bet you
Oh,
he
yes.
had a strong testimony of the gospel.
Yeah, I tell you, he was a great blessing to our family. He was sent to our family to teach my children to love and serve each other because they all had to take care. They had to carry him. They changed his extremely stinky diapers, and I believe that that's what made my children stay faithful in the gospel. I I'm grateful that God sent me a child who was mentally and physically disabled. I don't think I could have handled it if he would have sent me a child that was spiritually disabled.
I have
And
spiritually disabled children,
well, God bless you for never giving up on them.
but I'm not going to say which ones.
Not a
Well,
good.
put it this way, they don't the ones that are don't watch me. So
So,
I guess I wouldn't worry about that. But
so
I'm
I
also
believe,
I'm also spiritually disabled. But go
oh,
ahead.
we all are. We all are. Anyway, I believe that God sent him to our family to strengthen my children and keep them faithful.
I love that. I love that. So he's serving on the other side of the veil. You make your home in New Mexico, Tijeras, New Mexico, and you live there for 30 years. You've been married for 37. You've done everything with your wife. You've served in primary, Cub Scout, Sunday school, early morning seminary like I am and my wife. You've been ward missionaries, stake missionaries, priesthood, relief society, quorum leaders and teachers, organizational people, and now you're in the Sunday school. You are concurrently serving together as ward missionaries right now and
Yes.
single adult reps for the
Right.
stake or for your ward.
For the ward, but we work with the stake, so
Okay.
all.
And Anthony is also serving as a counselor in the stake Sunday school presidency. And I asked you, what in the world does a stake Sunday school presidency do? Can you tell us that
Yes.
real quick?
I used to wonder that myself, but I don't wonder anymore. So we go around to the various wards and we encourage them to follow the Come Follow Me program, encourage them to have teacher councils, and now we're encouraging them to have parent councils. It's a wonderful calling, even though I used to make fun of it. I used to think it was silly, but God said, no, you're going to learn how to like this calling.
Oh, okay. Now, as far as you are, would you be considered a professor?
No, no, I have a master's degree, so I'm
Well,
not a
you,
PhD.
yeah, you hold science degrees in electrical and computer engineering
Right.
from Utah and California universities with a minor in math. After serving 26 and a half years at Sandia National Laboratories in California and New Mexico, Anthony retired. So you're retired now and you teach math and science at Hillsdale Charter School in Edgewood, New Mexico. Is that you also teach, you taught algebra, trigonometry, calculus, computer science, physics, and biology. Your brain is a computer, and you teach is that a high school?
It's a kindergarten through 12th grade.
Okay.
But I don't teach there anymore. I retired from that also. But my wife still teaches.
She teaches special needs, and you're self-employed as an engineer, and you hold 3 patents.
Yes.
Patents. If you want to know what the patents are, go watch the other videos in the playlist. All right, Anthony, what are we talking about today?
Well, I told you I had a funny story about white shirts and beards. It's not a joke. It's a true story. I hope it's not too boring because it's kind of a long story. But many years ago, I was sitting up on a stand with the bishop, and a young man came to pass the sacrament in a blue shirt. Oh no, it wasn't blue. It was a striped. His white shirt was stripes. And the bishop leaned over to me and he said, "Could you please talk to his dad? Ask him to wear a white shirt from now on." So I said, "Okay." I talked to this brother, and he got a little offended. He said, "I don't agree that we have to wear a uniform." And I said, "Hey, I'm just the messenger." Uh, you know, and he said, "Oh, this is the bishop's idea?" And I said, "Yeah." So he went and talked to the bishop. And the bishop said, "Look, we're not going to force anybody to wear a white shirt. If he wants to wear a stripe, that's okay. But I will tell you what'll happen is that next week, another deacon will show up in a blue shirt, and then we'll have pink, and then we'll have, it'll just go downhill from there." So he said, yeah, okay. And so he agreed. And his son, the next week, his son showed up in a white shirt, and my son showed up in a blue shirt. And I said, Debbie, why did you let? Oh, I didn't know they have to wear white, because I was in the bishopric meeting while she was getting the kids ready for church, so I
Yeah.
wasn't. Anyway, so the bishop was correct. Okay.
Now,
So
that is a cultural thing. We know that
yes,
because if you go back to the early church, when Christ was alive, or not even just Christ, during the time of Joseph Smith, I don't think everybody had pure white shirts
right.
and they're passing the sacrament. And during
And
the time of
actually,
Christ, they had robes and cloaks and shawls and whatever they had. It didn't matter.
right.
I've learned something recently by a bishop and stake president. I had one stake president that was very uniform. He wanted all the bishops to have all their deacons in white shirts, ties, and a cadence like you wouldn't believe. All right. He wanted everybody uniformed, marching perfectly, sitting down, not being released until the bishopric excused them back to their families. Some wards in Utah will still play the organ music as the deacons are walking back to their families. And then another stake president that didn't want that at all.
Right.
Didn't want to turn it into like a flag folding ceremony, like in the military, or a 21 gun salute or something like that, but wanted it to be natural and to focus on the spirit rather than how they were dressed. What do you
Right.
think
Yeah,
about that?
Yes, the white shirt thing is part of the unwritten order of things. There was a talk, I forget which apostle wrote the unwritten order of things, and it includes the white shirts, the bishopric sitting together in the stand, and those kind of things. They're traditions, and they're not bad, but they're not doctrine. In fact, Joseph Smith had a pair of garments that were actually red. Instead of buying their garments at the Beehive Clothing, they would take their undergarments and they would sew the sacred marks into their undergarments, and they became sacred garments. So they weren't necessarily white.
Right.
But anyway, but I think it's a good thing to have the deacons wear white shirts and ties. But that's not the end of the story. I told you it has to do with beards too. So, I always wanted to wear a beard, but I couldn't because I wasn't manly enough. It was just peach fuzz. Okay. Uh, but 17 years ago, my little brother saved my life by giving me one of his kidneys. And so I've been taking these anti-rejection drugs to keep my little brother's kidney hydrated and working properly. The anti-rejection drugs lowered my voice and gave me facial hair. And so I celebrate my new lease on life from my little brother I celebrate by wearing a beard. And I like it because it hides my double chin. I'm fat. And when I look in the mirror without a beard, I hate the person I see. I hate what I look like. But with the beard, I'm like, he's okay. He's kind of handsome. I used to be handsome when we got married, and my wife is still extremely beautiful. And I feel
Welcome
like
to the fat club, brother. I'm eating milk chocolate as you're talking.
yes. I have a funny story about chocolate too. I came back from Utah with a beard and a new kidney. And for 3 years, my wife and I taught early morning seminary, and I wore a beard, and nobody said anything. Then, after 3 years, my wife was released. They called a new teacher to teach with me. And this man was celebrating the fact that he had just gotten out of the military. He started growing a ponytail. Okay. So it's the old white shirt thing, the blue shirt thing. We got Brother Bentley teaching seminary with a beard, and now we got Brother so and so growing a ponytail. You see, it's that whole snowball. And so the bishop called me in. Now, the bishop at this time, he was the man who had been offended years earlier when I asked his son to wear white shirts. Okay.
Ah,
So he
okay.
called me into his office and my wife, and I knew exactly what he was going to say. He wanted me to shave my beard so he could tell the other teacher, say, hey, Brother Bentley, he shaved his beard. Will you cut off your ponytail? I knew that's what he wanted. But you see, the tables had turned because because he remembered the previous conversation that we had. So he just beat around the bush. He wouldn't get to the point. He said, "Oh, we have this dress code in the seminary." And I said, "Oh, you mean I can't wear my pajamas anymore?" Anyway, eventually yeah. So I shaved my beard.
Did you remind him about
And
the shirt incident?
no, I didn't, because he was squirming. I knew that he
Right,
that's why he
right.
was nervous.
I gotcha.
And then when I finished after 4 years of teaching seminary, I grew my beard back. So that's my funny story about beard.
Nice. That is funny. Very funny. Because I still have facial hair and I teach seminary, and
Yeah.
we could discuss that another time.
Well,
So what are we talking about today?
Big. So I wanted to talk about disagreements among the 12. I love all of the apostles, but they don't always agree on everything, and that's okay. We're not mind-numbed robots. We all have our opinions, but when something becomes doctrine, it's when the all 15 prophets come to agreement, and then it becomes doctrine. So I have a funny story about one of those disagreements. So many years ago, Elder John Woodrow, I love him. He was a scientist, and so I kind of identify with him. But a book came out with his name on it called The Word of Wisdom. And in that book, it says that Latter-day Saints shouldn't eat white bread, shouldn't eat refined sugar, and shouldn't eat chocolate. And my grandparents, I love them. God bless them. They got a hold of this book, and they wanted to live by every word that proceeds forth from the mouth of God.
I remember in the 70s, that was a big thing. My dad did not want my mother to buy white bread, said that it was of the devil. And I didn't understand that. My dad was very eccentric. I love him. Yeah. He's passed away now.
Right.
But same thing. Sorry to interrupt you, but yes, I know how that feels, because I remember not understanding why we couldn't. Because my grandma Libby, she wasn't a member. My grandma Bonnie was, but my grandma Bonnie, she didn't buy into that. My grandma Bonnie had a strong testimony, but she's like, white bread, wheat bread, that doesn't matter. Yeah. And then my grandma Libby had white bread, Wonder Bread, right? Or rainbow bread too. So I'd go, Mom, how come we can't have white bread? And she would say, ask your dad.
Well, the white bread was like candy. When I was a teacher, we would prepare the sacrament, and there's all this white bread left over, and they were going to throw it away. I said, can I eat? I asked the bishop, is it all right for me to eat the left? Oh, he said, that's fine. It's like candy,
Well, I had a friend. Okay. So just real quick, now that we're saying stories about white bread, it didn't make sense to me either that we were eating white bread at sacrament, but not eating it at home. The other thing is I had family that came out from Oklahoma, and my uncle was told us the story during the Dust Bowl of the first time that he ever saw white bread. They thought it was cake, and they all ate it like it was cake, and they're like, "This is yummy and sweet."
So that's what we did in our family when we were rebellious teenagers. Instead of going behind the barn and smoking, we'd go behind the barn and eat chocolate and white bread.
Hey, Danny.
And that satisfied.
Danny, I got a good loaf of rainbow right here. Half a loaf, $5. Half a loaf.
$5 for the rainbow.
That satisfied our need to rebel. But I haven't gotten to the funny part yet.
Wait, have you got any of that good artesian bread? That's what I want.
Oh, yes. So it turns out that John Woodrow didn't write that book. It was written by his wife, and she put his name on it to give it more credibility. But he loved his wife, and he never told. And the other apostles would harass him for being such an extremist on the word of wisdom. And he never let on that he didn't write the book. So for years, our family, we suffered. We'd go to mutual improvement. That's what they used to call young men, young women. And they would serve hot chocolate, and we would have to abstain, and we suffered. And it turns out for no reason. But the other apostles would harass him. And but Elder Woodrow actually loved chocolate. And he would have meetings with Elder Benson. He would say, Elder Benson, we have to have an emergency meeting. And he would go over to Elder Benson's house and they would overdose on chocolate. And then he would go home and his wife didn't know.
But here's the deal, Bentley, Tony Bentley.
Yes.
Here's the thing.
Yes.
Was Johnny Whitso's wife right, though? In a sense, she was keeping a higher law. She was trying to, when you read in the scriptures, it talks about the staff of life. It talks about wheat, bread, the bread of life. I am the bread of life.
Right.
She wanted to be true to the Doctrine and Covenants,
Yes.
to the word of wisdom, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And I love my grandparents for wanting to do that too. And for teaching me, because, you know, hey, it was all good. I turned out okay. Well, some people would say I'm damaged, but but the thing is, it turns out that the caffeine in chocolate is actually not bad. It's actually been it's a metabolized form of caffeine, which is not habit forming and not addictive. So theobromide is what's the caffeine in chocolate is actually fine.
The same with Coca-Cola and Pepsi, and I think that's where well, let me just say this. Hold on.
Yes.
We don't see very many people lined up to go get Pepsis in the morning. We see lots of people lined up to get coffee.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, it's a matter of dosage. So my understanding is that the caffeine that's in Coca-Cola and those drinks is actual caffeine, and it is addictive and habit forming, but the dose is less than a cup of coffee. But then they start upping the amount of caffeine. They make these energy drinks, and it says right on those energy drinks, warning, this has as much caffeine as a cup of coffee and more, you know.
But I will say this, though, coming from a part member family.
Yes.
And by the way, folks, we're having a conversation, so relax. I'm going to interject, right,
Good.
Bentley? Also, coming from a part member family, there were times where I did drink coffee as a teenager, okay? I know the difference. There are other things in coffee besides the caffeine that are highly addictive. We don't know why, all the reasons why we have the word of wisdom, because there's a big difference. I'm telling you, when you drink coffee, it consumes your whole body. It's not just the caffeine. There are other very highly addictive chemicals in coffee besides the caffeine.
So I told you the other apostles would harass Elder Woodsill for being such an extreme. And one of those apostles was Bruce McConkie. Well, he served much later, but in Mormon doctrine, he talked about there's certain fanatics in the church who teach against the use of white bread, refined sugar, and chocolate. He said they're unstable fanatics. But then he's inconsistent. He talks about cola drinks, and he said Latter-day Saints should not drink cola drinks, you know, but he says that people who don't eat chocolate are fanatics. All right, so
so it sounds like they have opinions.
They have
on
opinions.
Things. Yeah.
So this elder showed up in our ward several years ago, and his name tag said McConkie. And I said, and the weird thing is he wouldn't eat chocolate. And I said, are you related to Bruce McConkie? Yeah, he's my dad's brother. And I said, do you know what he wrote about people who don't eat chocolate? And I opened up the Mormon doctrine. I showed it to him, and his jaw hit the floor. So Elder McConkie was calling his own brother a fanatic. Yes, an unstable fanatic.
I got to write that down. Hold on.
Yeah. So anyway, look it up, caffeine and chocolate in Mormon doctrine. And then to put the final chapter on this, I told you 17 years ago, my little brother gave me a kidney. He saved my life. But now I'm taking anti-rejection drugs. And one of the side effects of anti-rejection drugs, other than facial hair, it also gave me diabetes. And so now I have to be a fanatic again. I have to not eat white bread. I can't have very much sugar. I draw the line on chocolate, though. I still eat chocolate, especially dark chocolate. Anyway, so, you know, it's come full circle, you know. Yes. And